As I said in the last tutorial, the Django framework is actually an ORM-based web framework. Here ORM stands for Object Relational Mapping. By default Django integrates with SQLite, but we will use the popular MySQL database in this project. So, to install, type pip install mysql and hit enter. OK, the MySQL driver is installed in our development environment. Now, we will install the MySQL connector. To install it, type pip install mysql connector python and hit enter. However, this connector will be installed without the -python option, because the official connector does not suggest the -python option. Still, I am installing with this option because for some unknown reason, it sometimes gives problems if it is not there. So, to avoid any inconvenience, we are going to install it as an official suggestion, so that, if there is a problem with one, the other can support it. So type pip install mysql connector and hit enter. Great! Our MySQL driver and MySQL connector installation has been successfully completed. Now, we need to download the MySQL database server. So, to download it from their official website according to your operating system. In my case, since I am using Windows OS, I am downloading the MSI installer. Let me share an important information with you. Usually, in most cases, PostgresQL database is used with Django projects because it is quite robust among open-source RDMS database servers, which is very close to Oracle Database Server. Since Django is an OMR-based web framework, as I said before, it can handle any database server. There is no need to know any separate configuration or language. So whether it is RDMS or NoSQL database server, you can follow the normal process of Django for any of them. I will share with you a complete tutorial using Docker with Django, PostgreSQL, and React very soon. The tutorial will definitely be based on a real-life project and the tutorial will be very useful for your professional work. So, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe now, so that you get your updates as soon as the tutorial is uploaded. Now, let's get back to our work. I am not showing installing MySQL server here because I believe we can all do it. Since we are using MySQL database server, we need to update the databases section in our settings.py file. Here we see that the SQLite configuration is already set, as it is the default setting for the Django framework. Let's check the db.sqlite file. Because you must remember that we created a super admin user in the last tutorial. So, let's check that the super user is actually here or not. We should take a look at this because the default SQLite was configured until the last tutorial. And now we will shift to MySQL. Here we select the auth user table. Yes, look, our super user is here. Just remember the email address here, because in the next step we are going to connect to MySQL database and that will clear up some confusion for us. Okay, now let's connect to the MySQL server. To do that, we need to update the databases section of our settings.py file. So, first let's define MySQL as our engine. Now let's input the database name. Although we haven't created this database on the MySQL server yet, just make sure that the database server is also running when you run this project. Now enter the database username. I am using the default username root here, but this username should not be used in production environment. And now enter the password. Here, I have kept the password the same as the username, but again I say that it should not be used in a production environment like this. Now, enter the host name. Since this is my local PC, I will enter localhost here. Here, remember, the key and the value must be placed inside the invited comma and must end with a comma. Finally, enter the port. Here the default port of MySQL server is 3306. Okay, now, since we have given the database name CRMDB in this configuration, we need to create a database on the MySQL server with this exact name. And there are many ways to do this, but I will use the database extension of the VS Code editor here. I don't really want to go outside the VS Code editor and use anything else. Actually, it's a matter of personal preference. Here, I have my MySQL server running and I will create a new database by clicking on the plus button in the corner. Here, a SQL file opens where I will give the exact database name that I just defined in the settings.py file. Then I will press the execute button in this left corner to create the database. Yes, the database has been created. Here is our database. Look, there are no database tables here yet. Now let's create Django's default database tables. Like in the last tutorial, here too we will create Django's default tables in our MySQL database using the migrate command. So type python manage.py space migrate. Then hit enter. Yes, the table is being created in our database. Okay, our default database tables are created. Now let's check if the tables have been created in the database. Click on the refresh button in the corner to see the all default tables. Great. Here are all our default tables. Now let's check the auth user table to see if any users exist. Look, there are no users here. So, let's now create a super user like we did in the previous tutorial. Now type python manage.py space create super user, then hit enter. Enter username. In my case it's admin. Now enter email address. Here I am keeping the email address a little different from the previous tutorial. Here I am writing the email address as adminmysql@email.com. Enter password. Retype same password again. Enter Y, then hit enter. And don't worry about those red colored lines. It shows because my username and password both are same and very short password. Now let's check the auth user. Great. Here is our newly created super user, where we see our new email address that we just gave. So, now let's run our CRM project and check from the Django admin panel whether this newly created super user is showing there or not. So go to the terminal and type the command to run the project, then hit enter. Okay, our project runs successfully on port 8000 as usual. Wow, great. Our project has been successfully launched. Now let's access the Django admin panel. Just type admin at the end of the URL, then hit enter and login. Nice. We were able to log in successfully. Now, let's click on the user's link and check our desired super user, so that we can make sure that we are connected to the MySQL database. Yes, here is the email address of our newly created super user. So now we have practically seen that the Django framework can be configured with any database very easily. Hope you are enjoying my tutorial series. In the next tutorial we will start building our app. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, then subscribe to the channel and keep getting the latest tutorials and career updates on machine learning, AI, and data engineering. Thank you. See you in the next section.